Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ number 50, the knife series where I answer all your questions whether they're sharp or dull. This week we're talking about name changes for classic steels, what's the difference between a tactical and a military or combat knife, and are scissors really better than knives? Let's get into it. All right, so big fun news today, actually. Even though there are 52 weeks in a year, it's actually been, right now with our 50th episode, 1 year since we started doing these Knife AQ segments. We missed 2 weekends in there, I think due to shows and other things. But Thomas has been back there cracking wise while I'm up here answering your questions for a whole year now.
And apparently you guys like the format.
And we really appreciate that. I do anyway. I have a lot of fun doing these videos. And as always, make sure to leave your questions down below. So we've got a continually filling bank of questions to ask. I know I say that, and I'm definitely underwater on the questions. I've got over 100 pages right now.
Thanks.
But keep them coming. Also, to everyone out there who wished me a happy birthday a couple weeks ago when we had our good friend Shirley up here talking about me rather tongue-in-cheekly. Really appreciate that too. I've been on vacation a little bit, so this is actually the first Knife AQ we've filmed since my birthday, so appreciate that as well. Thank you, everyone. Let's get into the questions for this week, though. First one comes from Ben Rogers. It says, "Hey DCA, quick question. The knives I use the most have larger sheep's foot or Wharncliffe-like blades. Can you recommend something in the 2-inch blade length range? Because I have a coworker that loves to use my knives, but they're not knife people. So I'd love to give them something smaller and simple to open and close, because I haven't quite figured out the frame lock yet." Sure thing. That's got Mini Tough Light from Cold Steel written all over it. Very useful little design, and they come in about $30, so they're not all that expensive either. You've got, we'll call this one a Wharncliffe in this case. About 2 inches long, 41/16 stainless steel. A little bit less than 2 inches on the actual sharpened edge there. I mean, it's, what's that, close to 1.5 inches maybe, because you've got the large choil here that still allows you to get a full grip on that knife. So it's pretty safe. In addition to that finger guard, you've got the triad lock there at the back, and it's very effective. Nice sharp edge, hollow grind. It's gonna cut very nicely. Very easy to use with that triad lock. No frame lock frippery here. A little bit harder to open for me with my slightly larger than average hand size due to the small size of this knife. If that's a concern to you, the regular Tough Light has about a 1/2 inch longer blade, so it's still not a large knife, but is also a really good choice. The other nice thing about them is you've got a couple different color options, which in certain work scenarios, obviously you've got your work friend who loves to use your knives and he doesn't care, but sometimes a more brightly colored handle can, shall we say, destigmatize a knife in certain ways with certain people anyway. So something to keep in mind. Really cool knives, whether you go with the mini or the full size. All right, next question comes from Narrow Frontier. Do you see any difference between tactical and combat knives? And if yes, what differs both of them from each other? So for me, when I'm talking about, or when I think about the difference between a combat and a tactical knife, it's a little bit, they're all kind of designed to do similar things, and that's, be an offensive device. But it's about the connotations behind the words. And for me, tactical is a little bit more of a kind of a broader term and can kind of encompass a lot of different kind of offensive knives out there. But when I think of a combat knife, it's got more associations with actual military or battlefield use. So, things like this Gerber LMF right here. Solid USA made option designed for use by troops. And I think that actually might be even more the differentiator. If these are like infantry or troop carried pieces, it's more of a quote unquote combat knife, as opposed to the tactical things that can encompass special operations, law enforcement needs, to a certain extent rescue personnel, and even certain sort of kind of martial disciplines. You get blades like a karambit here, like this Cold Steel Tiger Claw. Great knife. I wouldn't exactly call this a combat knife, but it's definitely a tactical knife. So maybe it's like the all squares or all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares type of thing.
Now we're getting into that kind of geometry.
Clearly I was a math major, don't you know? It's why I can't measure what my hand size actually is. But I'd say all combat knives are tactical knives, even though they kind of have their own subgenre. That's what it all is, really. But in terms of some recommendations, you know, LMF, solid, proven combat knife, the K-Bar Mark II, the USMC Fighter. But then we get into the tactical things. Oh, that's another point, actually. A lot of EDC stuff nowadays can be considered kind of a tactical folder because of what it is, but it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that's always intended for law enforcement or special operations or anything like that. It just has to have some self-defensive capabilities. Think of like the Spyderco Yojimbo. Great knife, self-defense oriented, definitely tactical. I wouldn't say it's a combat knife. So hope that helps kind of clarify. At least there's no industry recognized definition where it's cut and dried, but that's the way I kind of understand things. So thanks for the question. Next one comes from John NH123. Hey DCA, I've been admiring the recent work from Wharncliffe gear. That said, I'm a little mystified with their preferred steel of SK85, which I've never heard of before and can't seem to find a lot about on the internet. Can you assist by breaking it down for us? How does it perform and what does it compare to? So the reason you probably haven't heard of SK85 is because it's just a new name. SK85 used to be known as SK5, which has been around for a long time. Very dependable steel, and essentially it's a Japanese standard. Their standardizing agency, I should say, is what gives the names to some of their grades of steel. SK5, they've just decided to rename. Not entirely sure why, honestly. It definitely makes your job as a knife consumer and my job as a knife explainerer a little more difficult. But SK85 is SK5, simple, dependable carbon steel, not metallurgically identical to something like 1095 or 1075. But we tend to kind of think of it as being in sort of the same tier as some things like that. Not an insane degree of edge retention, but it's going to be very tough, especially on a larger knife like this Nomad Camp knife, which at least while we're filming, we've got a small restock in of these right now. They might be gone by the time this video posts, so I do apologize for that. But it's the only thing I have from them right now in SK85, so I got to show it to you. Super tough, especially at the 1/4 inch thickness on this excellent blade, and we're just really thrilled to be the first US dealer to be carrying these blades because they are quite awesome. All right, next question comes from Vic Fredette. Hey guys, my son and I were just discussing that I do not have a pair of scissors in the house other than small mustache scissors. I explained as a knife fan, there's seldom a situation where a knife can't do as good or a better job. Thoughts? I have some. For a lot of like general purpose utility stuff, if we're talking about a knife versus scissors there, I would agree. Knife usually takes the win. But the scissors are a more specialized tool, and as such, you can kind of do some more specialized tasks with them, and sometimes more safely than a knife. Let's talk about the general utility stuff first. I do have a pair of kitchen shears here, which, that's gonna give you a clue about what we're gonna talk about in a minute. But if we're talking general utility, if you're opening a box from your online shopping, knife all day. But certain things like sometimes zip ties or even like heavier pallet straps, if they're tough to get your blade under, there's usually a way to do it, but scissors can have a better usage there, or certainly a more safe usage. We're talking about things like certain crafting projects. You're going to want scissors and a knife. In this case, several X-Acto blades, in fact. One area, though, where I think scissors are underutilized by a lot of home cooks anyway, is in the kitchen. There's a lot of things you can do with a pair of scissors that are safer and cleaner and easier than using a knife. Have you ever tried to spatchcock a chicken using a cleaver? I have. It's pretty messy, so it's a much better thing to actually get in and cut through the bones there. Very easy to break down a lot of joints in small fowl like that. You can cut things straight into a pan. I've done, I've had a sausage, and you can just pull out a pair of scissors. You don't have to dirty a cutting board, and you can cut something right into your cast iron pan, or whatever pan you're using, of course. Herbs works really well for cutting up herbs off of a stalk or off of whatever bunch you have right into something sometimes. Just a lot of good uses there. One thing, I mentioned the cutting board. I don't do this, but I know some people that actually swear by cutting pizza with a pair of scissors. They've got, pizza scissors. So a few reasons there you might want to use them. This one right here, this particular device, this is the Wharncliffe Icon. It's a set of forged kitchen shears from their Icon line, which is a great fixed blade kitchen line. Standard kitchen knife line. These guys run about $50. They are super solid. As you can see, that forged construction gives it a lot of strength. It's comfortable in the hand because it's all nice and rounded over where you want it to be. It even comes apart for cleaning, which, let's be honest, scissors are specialized knives. It's 2 knives in one, and we all know that Simpsons meme. It's pretty terrific having 2 knives. So maybe that can help you out a little bit. Do you need a pair of scissors for your general utility? Not necessarily, but there's certainly a lot more you can do with a pair of scissors in a different way than you could with your standard knife. All right, now we come to the lightning round for today. First is from Bryce Pang. Hi DCA, is there an OTF knife that isn't automatic or assisted opening? I like the looks, but my state laws don't allow for automatics. Yeah, I got one right here from this year. This is the Kershaw Capsule, a Jens Anso design. It's about $32, and it's got kind of a push button slider here. Sorry. Works pretty well, even though I fumbled it there for a second. You just push it in, or push the button in. You can slide it in, the blade in or out, locks into place. Pretty cool little blade. There's a few things out there that have this kind of slider style lock, but this is certainly one of the most recent. You don't really see it on too many like super expensive things. It tends to concentrate on the budget end of things, but definitely a cool option to check out if you're looking for that kind of vibe. All right, next question comes from Blue Sky. What is it now with everybody uploading shorts? That's quite annoying, frowny face. I get it, I do. You're referring to some of the blooper reel things we've been posting occasionally, about once a week right now, on YouTube's Shorts feature, which is kind of their TikTok competitor. And I'm not a big TikTok guy, so I get it. But from our perspective as people with a channel, we're trying to reach more people. What winds up happening is, as any kind of platform, social media platform like YouTube introduces a new feature, they really want us as creators to use it. And as such, what they all inevitably start to do is they start weighting their algorithm, or they start using their algorithm to see whether we're using that feature. And if we're not, fewer people are actually going to see our regular videos. So, we're trying to reach as many people as we can, so we kind of have to use it whether we like it or not. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep it fun. If you don't want to watch them, that's great. These bigger, longer pieces of regular content aren't going anywhere. We're not doing any fewer of these. But like I said, we're trying to add a little bit of fun. See some of the behind the scenes stuff, see some of the blooper reels that people were asking for. We used to put them at the end of some of the videos, but we decided to clean it up there a little bit. I think they're a little bit of a fun thing, a little bit of a smile, but if you don't want them, leave them in the dustbin, no problem.
I've already got the footage anyway.
Yeah, it's not like Thomas is doing any extra work. You guys see the polished, finished product here. I mess up. I'm only human after all.
Boy, is he.
But as he said earlier, when I did mess up answering this question the first time, you got to adapt or die. So that's what we're doing. Next question here comes from Drew Ryan. I have some young kids in the house, ages 6 to 10. At what age do you think it is good to train them in safe knife use so that they can begin to use a knife for whittling and carving? That's one of the things where there's no standard answer. Every kid's different. Only you know your kids, so only you really know when it's going to be safe to introduce them to these things. And there's nothing to say that a super young kid can't use a knife safely. I mean, we've all seen videos of people in more developing nations with little 4 and 5 year olds wielding machetes to make dinner. You just got to start them young, or as young as you feel comfortable, as young as they're comfortable with, but get them familiar with it. Do things the right way. I can't give you a specific age range. We did do a nice video, I thought, on some first knife recommendations. We'll make sure to point to that. But I always like to recommend the medium-sized buck bantam. This is the buck 285 bantam. It's an appropriate size, not too big, not too little either. You do want them to have enough to hang on to. You got a finger guard here, but your finger's still far enough away from the edge in case of slippage. Nice back lock, two-handed closing, which I think is important when starting kids out. Made in the USA, and it's only 20 bucks too. So it's a quality piece that they're going to be able to use far longer if they still have it going on, but it's not going to be a heartbreak if they lose it. All right, John West now asks, hey DCA, have you ever used a serrated blade to make feather sticks, and does it work? I have not. I know some people who have, but you do have to kind of have the right serrations. For instance, these the cold steel serrations where they have the little triple teeth serrations in between the larger one, you're gonna have a harder time using that to make smooth feather sticks. Me personally, I stick with a plain edge. All right, now for the most serious question of the day, which comes from Voidvids. Does the KnifeCenter force its employees to shave their heads? Knife cult. Must be referring to Seth, who shaved his head recently to match mine. But I really read that question to lead into the next one, which comes from Legrand Badger. Hey DCA, I want to follow yours and Seth's trend and shave my head. What knife would you recommend for that? Clearly, it's got to be a scalper, right? Probably. Is it clear that this is a joke yet?
I don't know.
Okay. That's all the time we've got for today. Make sure to leave your questions down below so that we can pick through them and pick out some good ones to answer for a future video. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, we'll send you over to the KnifeCenter with links in the description. And make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program so that you can earn some free money to spend on your next knife when you buy one of these knives today. I'm David C. Anderson from the KnifeCenter, signing off. See you next time. What?